Good evening, welcome to the Buck Stops here. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program this evening, shocking new statistics by the NGO Save the Children throws up some very disturbing facts. 1 out of every 2 children in India is malnourished. More than 8 million live in slums. More than half of the street children in urban India have been sexually abused. On the show this evening, underfed, stunted and abused. Urban India's invisible children. And in this is the girl child, India's most unwanted. Also on the program this evening, the government comes out with its new report on net neutrality. Now the government says it's being honest to the cause, but the question is this: why should WhatsApp and Skype calls within the country possibly be charged? Because there is a proposal that suggests that there may not be anything wrong to necessarily charge them, because there is again a belief that perhaps having free calls on WhatsApp and the like results in companies, telecom companies, losing out financially. The government and some in the government may argue that that is also not fair. Others say you've forgotten about net neutrality. So we try and break it down and see how this new Department of Telecommunication report affects you and me potentially. But that's later on. First, our top story. This report on the hopeless condition of poor children in our urban centers. Is this the India that we choose never to think about?
Manki Devi and Parwana share their living space with 7 children and a huge garbage dump, trying desperately to make ends meet with meager earnings. Here in the city for decades, Manki Devi lost her 2 children years ago to illness. Given the filth around, it's hardly surprising Parwana makes regular trips to the doctor.
एक आध 2 हफ्ते में हो जाते हैं।
क्या होता है?
बुखार धर लेता, उल्टी आने लगता है।
फिर दवाई कहाँ होती है?
दवाई तो वहीं होती, डॉक्टर के पास ही, गढ़ी के पास।
और
पैसे लगा देते हैं 40-50 रुपये। नहाने का पानी भी नहीं मिलता यहाँ। गरीब आदमी है, कहीं जगह जमीन मिल जाए, घर द्वार मिल जाए तो बच्चन को पढ़ाते लिखाते अच्छा ही लगे। ऐसे खुले में रहना पड़ता है।
Sex ratio continues to worsen, dropping from 935 to 905 in 2 decades. Urban areas well behind rural India. 1 in 8 children in India lives in its slums. That's 8 million young living in squalor. 1 out of 3 children in urban India is underweight. 2 out of 5 are stunted. 500,000 children die every year due to diarrhea, and slum children are 1.3 times more prone to it. Over 65% of children have faced domestic violence, and crimes against children have jumped substantially. That's 52% in 1 year between 2012 and 13.
If such a large cohort of children with such great skill and capability, if they are left out, actually we as a country will suffer economically.
These images sum up the India story when it comes to how we deal with underprivileged urban children. They're not only neglected, but they're also deprived of basic health, sanitation and education. And often they're not even the subject matter of public policy and discourse. They are found at traffic signals, roadside corners, under flyovers and in our neighborhoods.
पानी के पीछे हमें बहुत दूर जाना पड़ता है। पानी के पीछे लड़ाई भी होती है। जब स्कूल से आते हैं तो मम्मी के साथ मदद कराते हैं, पीस बनाते हैं, रुई के पीस नहीं होते उनको बुनते और दे के आते हैं और मदद करना पड़ता है।
But so long as they continue to be invisible and unheard, India will have a gaping hole in its development matrix. In New Delhi, Keith Kiangre for NDTV.
Well, the report is absolutely shocking by Save the Children. What does this actually reflect? It perhaps reflects something that people across India in our big cities know all too well, that children in our urban centers are in an appalling condition. That whenever we talk about GDP growth and how great our country is and how much impact we may be making around the world, we tend to forget or just brush under the carpet the reality of the girl child and the child. Joining us now to discuss this and what this report actually says, Harpal Singh. He's the chair of Save the Children. It was Save the Children that came out with this report. He'll be joining us in the studio shortly. From the BJP, GVL Narasimha Rao. Ranjana Kumari, the director of the Center for Social Research, joins us as well. And from the Congress, we're joined by Priyanka Chaturvedi. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Harpal Singh, this report of yours has so many damning statistics. In your mind, what is the most shocking and the most tragic number or statistic that you have here?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm sort of caught up in a traffic jam. But let me actually start by saying, first of all, this is a joint report by PwC and by Save the Children, right? And I also want to say that the entire purpose of this report was not so much to bring out, as you, I would say, rather harshly put it, damaging, but more to be positive and say that whatever is the realities around children in urban India and how can we help change those realities is really the real purpose of the report. So I'd like to make sure that we position this report in a way to say that that was the real reason for why we entered into, why we thought of bringing out this report. Now, there are many aspects in the report which provide statistical support. And mind you, again, this is not data which is not known. What the report, I think, has done rather nicely is the fact that we've consolidated a lot of the data and we put it together in a way that can be used by policymakers, by people who advocate, by other kinds of stakeholders who are interested in the space for children. And I think that that's really speaking, I would say, is the real focus of the report. Now, and if I may say, some of the positives are, it is a matter of surprise to us and to many others that in large amounts of urban planning done for the country, the cohort of a very important group of citizens called children was scarcely ever taken up. And I think if there's one great positive that we see coming out of this report is the fact that children and their issues hopefully will become somewhat more center stage.
No, sir, I understand what you're trying to say by saying that there shouldn't just be a negative spin on this. But with all due respect, sir, the statistics that you have thrown up over here, and as you say, these are not brand new statistics, it's a compilation of statistics which has been carefully vetted. These statistics are very, very damaging. And it just seems on the basis of this, for us to realistically expect something overnight as a dramatic change seems very difficult. I just want to bring in Ranjana Kumari, the Director for the Center for Social Research. Ma'am, if we look at just two numbers, 32.7% of urban children under 5 are underweight. 39.6% of urban children under 5 are stunted, right? What exactly does this indicate about the condition of children in our urban centers? This is just two statistics.
Well, Vishnu, I think instead of being apologetic, instead of being little bit, undertone about it, we should be very, very, seriously considering the findings of this report. Not only that we have failed on the account of, education, we have also failed in the account of getting children inoculations, protecting them in terms of health, malnutrition. We are looking at now children who are of stunted growth. Now this is about future of India. So there is no point in shying away from the finding, and I would really appeal to the people who have PwC and Save the Children not to really get cowed down by the controversy, not to get any, just to protect themselves. They should not underplay this report. This is a very important report for the policymakers of the country, for all the doers of the country, all kinds of health, education, nutrition programs of the country, because we see on the one side 16,000 crore was reduced by 8,000 crore in terms of ICDS in the recent budget. So all the women and child ministry budget is cutting down. There are lots of programs and projects which were for nutrition of children, like ICDS has come down in terms of budget. So I think this is a serious wake-up call. Let us not undermine it, not underplay it. This is about what we are handing over the future to.
Okay.
to our children, what kind of a, in a young nation where the population is so young, if this is the kind of children we are, in terms of health, education, nutrition, in terms of their own, well-being and we are producing and we are, raising, then what future India is looking forward to. So instead of doing that, let's take it positive for the policymakers. It's a big challenge. Let's take it for the, everybody else to wake up to the call and really look at the data, accept the data and say here on, we are going to plan in a manner in which this can be reversed.
GVL Narasimha Rao, you would have taken a look at some of the statistics over here. 51.9% is the under 5 mortality rate among the urban poor. 51.9%. More than half of these children die in the urban poor in our urban centers. 54.6% for infant mortality rate among the urban poor compared to the overall urban average of 41.7. Just look at the difference. 36.8% for neonatal mortality rate compared to the overall average of 28.7. How does the BJP react to these statistics? I mean, building cities is one of your biggest focuses.
I think, Vishnu, I think I would advise you to please read the numbers carefully. I think the matter is the concerns are quite grave, but this infant mortality is not a percentage. It's always expressed in terms of 1,000 live births, how many children perish.
Sorry, 51.9.
This itself is
yes.
a number. It's not a percentage, it's a number. Okay? Because otherwise 51% would be
all right, 51.9 deaths per thousand is the under 5
live births.
Yes. No, I take that point and I correct myself on that. But those numbers themselves
Mr. Rao, this is more than sub-Saharan Africa. It's more than sub-Saharan Africa. Please remember that.
Please, Ranjana ji, I said the concerns are very grave. Only I sort of tried to correct him on how to interpret the number because I come from a
I take your point. Myself. I take your point.
Yeah. Okay. Certainly the concerns. I think what Ranjana ji said, I take objection to that. I think nearly 2 lakh crores has been given to the states as additional funds in terms of devolution, mainly to address concerns of socio-economic development as per their own local needs and requirements. Because the nutrition also is something that the local state governments and local self-governments can evolve a far better schemes rather than designing everything centrally. So I think therefore this is a very wrong interpretation or statistic. It's a motivational campaign to say that certain schemes have received lower allocation. And if you look at the actual utilization, actual money that was, it's not just allocation, but if you look at the actual spend, it's much higher during the last 1 year compared to the previous year. So, but looking at the concerns per se, I think one important reason why urban children are even worse off compared to rural children, as the UNICEF report says, is I think largely to do with influx, migration, and I think there is certainly our urban planners as a nation we have not been able to provide them the kind of
just as a point of clarification, sir, just as a point of clarification,
yeah.
Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, do you accept this report and what it comes out with? Are there statistics here that you dispute or you say are wrong?
Vishnu, I think from 91 onwards, I think the child sex ratio in this country has been declining. From 1991 to 2011, every census, these census numbers or something, no one should dispute. I think these are simply statistics and they tell you a trend. And I am not disputing them. Certainly, the sex ratio is a grave concern, which is the reason why our government, actually the Prime Minister Modi ji had announced this Beti Padhao, Beti Badhao, Beti Bachao Andolan, and in 100 districts which have a very adverse child sex ratio. Many of them having well below 900, even 800.
I just want to go back to Harpal Singh.
These districts are being targeted.
I think it's something.
Ma'am, give me a moment.
We are talking about.
Give me a moment. I just want to go back to Harpal Singh. Mr. Singh, more than 8 million children under 6 years of age live in slums. That's more than the combined population of 5 northeastern states. You've come out with a report which has this glaring statistic, and yet you're still trying to make the point that there is some positive that still emerges. So could you again explain how you see some positive emerging from the outcome of this report?
See, Vishnu, for one thing, as far as we are concerned, which is Save the Children, certainly, as far as we are concerned, we are really concerned about what we can do for children. And I am really not interested to get into a discussion and the politics of it all. The fact of the matter is that the condition of children today has not been something that has happened, in the last 2 years, or for that matter, the disquiet about children has been a consistent phenomena for a long time. So the positive is this: the very fact that we had the minister today come up and acknowledge the reality. We've also got right now an acknowledgement that nobody is contesting the statistics. It's fact that in most of our urban planning to date, there has been no discussion. In fact, the cohort of children has hardly been referred to in urban planning initiatives so far. So let's look at it. The statistics are not new, they have been known. The fact that today, if as a consequence of this report, we can have everybody, no matter which side of the political spectrum you are, that if there is an issue in Parliament around children, we hope that everybody gets together and supports it. Now, as far as 8 million children in slum India goes, there's a host of statistics that we have brought out that shows that the condition of children in urban India is actually far worse than children in rural India, and this has never been acknowledged. If you look at the allocation of resources, say, for development purposes, between 2005 and 2011, the quantum of money differential between urban investment for development and rural investment is a whopping 250,000 crores,
yes,
in spite of the fact that 30% of now the Indian population rests in urban India. So this question of the enablement that came out of the 93rd constitutional amendment, it enables, but there are not enough resources being put into urban settings. And we hope that this, one of the outcomes of the report will be that this will be a change in the allocation of national resources in support of
Mr. Harpal Singh, I'm just going to interrupt you over there, because we've actually got a little bit of news coming in from Hyderabad, which sort of reflects how desperate the situation is for children in our urban centers. The footage that you're actually now going to see is of a little baby, a newborn, dumped into a garbage truck or a garbage, into a garbage spot in Jawahar Nagar in Hyderabad. This happened earlier today. This picture is what Mr. Harpal Singh is talking about. This is what we don't like to talk about. This baby was dumped, right, by the parents, by the mother. We don't know the circumstances, in Hyderabad. This is what we are talking about. And this coming in, it's a newborn female body that was found. Priyanka Chaturvedi, let me come to you next. We'll come back to Mr. Harpal Singh in a moment. Is there anything that you can criticize the BJP for? Would you want to get into a political debate on this? Because the condition of urban India now is the product of mismanagement and a sense of not caring for decades across every government, and a sense of just looking the other way. What does the Congress party have to say about these shocking statistics? Because they are as much an indicator of a Congress failing as of any government. I mean, who do people blame for this?
No, exactly. I wouldn't want to get into a blame game. Neither would I want to make it a political affair. considering it has to do something with the society, considering it has something to do with our children, considering it has something to do with our future, the country's future. So I wouldn't want to talk about 49 versus 51 or 51 minus whatever, or the budgets allocated. I'm very certain and extremely certain of one thing, that political parties across the spectrum would want a healthy, happy future for our children. Whether it's the implementation that we discuss here, whether we talk about targeted drives, that is what the focus should be on. Ms. Ranjana Kumari did say that budget cuts have happened. Yes, they are unfortunate, and probably this report would be a step in the right direction for the government to realize that where are the budgets that need to be allocated, how they could be allocated better. And like Mr. Harpal Singh was making a point, that while we have been concentrating on rural areas, children in rural areas, we have neglected the urban children. And this is something which is not damaging, but more of an eye-opener, and where we would need to realize that maybe our allocation of funds could be done better, and concentration of, managing our children better through targeted schemes. This is how I look at this entire report, and I wouldn't want to get into a political blame game.
Okay.
Everybody has tried the best they could. Unfortunately, there could be numbers which are damaging, but also look
Everybody
at it as
has
an
tried their
eye-opener
best.
where we could
I'm
have
not sure
targeted
anybody
drives.
has tried anything, ma'am. But I take the point that you're trying to.
That's unfortunate. That is
it's
extremely
tragic beyond
unfortunate
words.
to say that nobody has done anything really.